Hey friends, welcome to the Inner Spark podcast. I'm your host, Casey Tayton. If you're looking to hear stories of transformation and personal growth, this podcast is for you. My guest and I will be sharing those sparking moments that has changed them into living a more fulfilling, authentic life. I'm so excited for you to hear each unique story. So sit back, relax, and let's get started.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Inner Spark podcast. I'm your host, Casey Tayton. Today is a special episode with my pod sisters, and we are talking about a very, very powerful topic, shame. How we shame ourselves, how we hold on to shame, and the shame we've carried with us throughout our lives. I want to thank Dana Hunter Fridella, the host of the Girls Who Recover podcast. She's going to be leading us through this. And you'll also hear my other pod sisters, Tracy Hill, Kana Sue, and Jen Chambers. I'm just going to jump right in because this is a great conversation, and I hope that you just listen with an open heart, open body, and open mind, and see how it resonates with you.
Hello, gorgeous. I am so grateful that you're joining us for this powerhouse conversation about the shameless woman, because shame is something that every single one of us as women knows intimately, and it's also one of the hardest things to speak about. So I'm offering so much love and appreciation for our gorgeous panelists who are here today to lead us in conversation around the dream of the shameless woman. And before we start, I want to do a couple of things so that we can settle into like, what do we mean by shame and what does shame actually mean? And I want to bring in the energy and spirit of shame researcher and ultimate goddess, Brene Brown. And she has an incredible episode on shame and accountability. And I will link that in the show notes. But pulling from some of the core concepts that Brene teaches about shame, I want to speak to a couple of parts of it. So let's give shame a definition, shall we? And panelists, I will put this in the chat just so we are having a shared working definition of what are we actually talking about when we talk about shame. So this is straight from Brene Brown. And she says that shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. So that has a lot of energy behind it. So I'm going to take a breath with you and we're going to read it again. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, and disconnection and connection. And I want to come out of my seat and do an on fire dance around that, because the mission of Girls Who Recover is to, at the core of it, help women transform their biggest setbacks into their most gorgeous comebacks. And shame is one of the heaviest, most powerful weapons that gets in the way of doing that. So I feel so called forward to have this conversation about shame. And we will continue to talk about shame until the cows come home, or until every woman in the world can walk around remembering that she is worthy of love. She is the belonging and she is connection. We're not just worthy of those things, we are those things. And so oftentimes these two words get mixed up. So I want to clarify the difference between guilt and shame. If you're a part of the recovery community, you're probably familiar with the phrase guilt, shame, and remorse, which is what we all walk in with when we are approaching the transformation of setback to comeback. But to differentiate guilt and shame, shame is I am bad. And guilt is I did something bad. And so I want to bring it to the elementary school level. I have 3 daughters. You probably know this. One's 5, one's 8, and one's 10. And they all have these beautiful, gorgeous, expansive imaginations. My second daughter has the biggest imagination. So sometimes what comes out of her mouth is very imaginative. And we've had this beautiful conversation in the car where I'll say, Audrey, I'm not sure that's true. Is that true? And she's like, yeah, it's true. And then my older daughter, whose conscious mind is developed and she's got a sassy sense of self, and she says, Audrey, you're a liar. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Hold on one second, because you are, or I am, implies that you are bad, or you are unworthy, or you are disconnected. So I've gotten up on the box and said, like, we got to be mindful of what comes after the great I am. But we paused that conversation and I said, no, we're not. So Audrey, don't receive that. Instead, Audrey is a beautiful child of the infinite who told a lie. You see the difference. It's not who she is. It's a behavior that she exhibited it. So I want to differentiate that shame as I am bad. It's that feeling of it's hot for you, right? Hot. It sort of washes over you. I feel it in my chest and my stomach. And it's like, oh, I am. And it's an attachment to who you are. And guilt is I am a beautiful child of the infinite. And I did this thing that doesn't align with who I am. And I think we get those confused. So I want to set the record straight. Thank you, Brene, for helping with that, because we're here to have the conversation about who we actually are and step into our assignment to be the shameless woman. So 2 things she mentions, and then I'm going to turn it over and introduce our panelist, is number 1, we all have shame. Every single person breathing. In my opinion, I think women have more of it. That may be because I work with a lot of women and I get to hear about it all the time. If you're a man listening, let us know. Shame is something everybody has. And the second thing is, ain't nobody like to talk about it. Nobody likes to talk about shame. So I want to commend 2 things. One is our guests for being here, and 2 is you for listening. Because shame says, how dare you go there? Don't you dare talk about us. Don't you dare tell the truth. Don't you dare shine the light. Then you might remember that we're actually all connected, that we're all the same in many ways, and that we are all on assignment, which is to love and experience both compassion and empathy for each other. Okay, so we got it. We got the definition of shame. We've got the difference between I am bad and I did something bad. And the last thing I want to say, because this might be one of the most important things that you hear, is how we experience shame and guilt often comes down to the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we talk to ourselves and the way that we talk to each other. But since we talk to ourselves the most, I want to bring it back to we are in, I'm going to pick up my wand, your wand meaning your agency, your awareness, your responsibility for you and your feelings and your emotions and your experience of life in the world. And so it's great news that it comes down to the way that we talk to ourselves, because guess who can change that? You got it. Okay. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce our Shameless Woman panelists, who also happen to be some of my closest and dearest friends. We have shared a mastermind together for over a year. All of these women are incredible in their own right. We all have podcasts, which is how we met. So, and then we all have our own unique business in the world. All of us are here to elevate the consciousness of women everywhere, and some of us in different ways. So I'm going to transition to the panelists, and I'll introduce each of you with a sentence bio and then ask you an intro question. You'll have about 2 minutes and then we'll swap. Sounds good? Beautiful. Okay. So I've asked each of the panelists to share a personal story about how shame has shown up in their lives, what it kept them from, and then what it shifted when they began to name it. And so I would love to start with the CEO and founder of A Beautiful Fix, my gorgeous friend, Tracy Hill. And Tracy Hill is the creator of A Beautiful Fix, which is a podcast and a movement helping women stop chasing external answers and start trusting the wisdom within, while reconnecting with the wonder and awe that makes life feel beautiful again. And she's a certified human design guide, a retreat host, yes, and a self love advocate, guiding women to feel high on life. I love that. One beautiful fix at a time. So, Tracy, I will turn it over to you. Can you share a little bit about how shame has shown up in your life, what it's kept you from, and how it's shifted when you started to name it?
Absolutely. So, Dana, it's interesting because when you asked me to be on a panel about shame, I was like, I'm in because it's Dana. And I knew the amazing women that would be on this panel with me. But to be honest, I thought shame's not really my thing. Like, I don't have a relationship with shame. Now guilt lives with me. Like, that is my girl. Guilt is always here. And I was like, but then I started thinking about it, and I watched Brene Brown's talk because I love her. I read a chapter in this book that I have, Women Who Run with Wolves, all about shame. And I thought, oh my gosh, I absolutely have shame. For some reason, I don't really associate myself with it. That's not something I would immediately go to. But when I started thinking back on my life, I realized I've always had shame. I've always wanted to be the perfect girl, daddy's little girl, and doing the right things. And it kept me really on the straight and narrow because I never wanted to do anything wrong. I think the first moment where I really truly experienced shame was I developed before some of my friends. I was stick thin, very, very thin, but I developed a chest. And I swam every single day. And I don't know how old I was, but 10, 11, something like that. But I hopped out of the pool. We had a public pool right next door to me. And I hopped out of the pool, and one of the guys screamed, Tracy Brown, that's my maiden name, Tracy Brown's got tennis balls. And I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. Everyone turned and looked at me. I hated having people, notice me. And from that moment, I started to slouch. I wore a t-shirt to the pool from that day on. I never wore just a bathing suit again. And I carry that with me. And so my life has that's kind of been my relationship with shame. I'm very getting in trouble in school. I would feel intense shame. If I did something wrong, I felt shame. But it's followed me. And even in my adult years, I realized, I left my career in 2020, and I had no business doing it. It wasn't something that it was like, oh, I planned it out. I just kind of left. I left my family hanging. And I remember leaving feeling intense shame. And knowing that I was going to I told my husband beforehand that I was obviously going to leave, but I hadn't told my children. And I remember the moment where we were going to call my two sons that were in college. We called my two sons that were living at home and that moment where I was going to tell them, I felt immense shame over what I had done. But when I mentioned it to them and I was ready to start explaining myself and begging for their forgiveness. And instead, and I told this story to you before, Dana, my oldest son smiled. Both of my older sons smiled, and the boys that were in the room with me. And I remember my oldest saying, "Congratulations, Mom." And so I think that's really, and I'm sure we're going to get into this later. That is the thing with shame and Brene talks about this. It's secrecy. It's that everyone wants to belong. They want to feel included. It's that keeping silent. But the moment you can speak it into existence, it kind of dissipates. So those are just some examples. The other one I'll share is I recently went skinny dipping, and I have never done that in my life, ever, because of shame of my body, shame of the idea of someone else seeing me. It was just something I never even wanted to do. But recently, in my pool, my own pool, some friends mentioned that they had gone skinny dipping, and I thought, I've never done that in my life. And I thought, I'm going to do it. And I did it. Yes, it was midnight. Yes, there was no light outside except for the moonlight. But in that moment, I remember being in the pool thinking, why have I felt shame about doing something like this or just showing my body? Not that anyone could see it, but it made me think about, why do we carry this shame? And I definitely agree that I think women take on way more shame than men, but I'll stop there. So that's my introduction to my life with shame.
Thank you, Tracy. And also check out that podcast episode on A Beautiful Fix about her first experience skinny dipping because it's so fun. It is so fun. And then the other thing I heard is the ways that shame shows up for us. So you mentioned in your childhood, you mentioned at school, you mentioned with your body, you mentioned with your family, you mentioned with your career. So it is so sneaky and it shows up in all the corners of life. So thank you, Tracy.
Absolutely.
Next, we will hear from the gorgeous, legendary CEO and founder of Midlife Butterfly, my friend Kana Siu. And Kana is the founder of Midlife Butterfly and the host of the Midlife Butterfly podcast. And she helps women move through life's biggest transitions. So listen up, midlifers, going through transitions, divorce, loss, reinvention, and awakening, guiding them to come home to themselves, reconnect with their soul and body, and create lives of freedom, love, and joy. That is like a spiritual orgasm just reading out loud. Okay. Your work in the world. Oh,
Yes,
I love it so much. Okay, so same question to you, if you will. Share with us what shame has looked like in your life and what you've done to shine the light on it.
yes, thank you. Uh, it also comes to the body, as Tracy was sharing before. I was 13 years old. I went to visit a friend. My parents were, I don't know, I went to see this friend. My parents were in the car, so I go knock the door, and his little brother opened the door, and then somebody screamed like, "Who is there?" And he said, "Oh, it's a skinny, tall girl with glasses and braces." And that stood with me. I mean, and still, it's still there, right? So ends up his brother was not there. I came back to the car, and then I was furious. I was like so mad. And my parents just like, "What happened?" So I told them, and they just laughed about it because it was, I guess it was funny. They didn't know else like what to do or what to ask. But I didn't realize that stood with me until I don't know, probably a decade or something. So many years later, and the consequences of that was that, again, like hiding my body. And like me, for example, when I turned 15, in Mexico, we have the quinceañeras and everything. At that time, like my chest was still, plain. I don't know when they grow and it was afterwards, but even like I got the shame, for my body, for my looks, that I will, like in university, I was already, having nice boobs and everything. And my friends were like, "Wear something that you can show them. Like, you're so nice and sexy and stuff." But in my mind, I was still probably like this skinny girl, and that got rejected because that's how I took it. I took that comment as a rejection, and that became my main wound. And because of that, of course, has affected my life. And going to, big gatherings, I would be the one in the corner hiding, or just for my business, it took me like 2 years to do the first video. I was so afraid of it. And again, I was afraid of being seen. So the consequences just for and simple, between quotes, comment of this little kid describing who I was, the effect they had in my life was like very, yeah, it was really, what is the word, daunting? It was really there. So by working in my wound of rejection, that's how it's been like the process of dimming and clearing up that shame.
So I'm hearing a couple of similarities. One is it starts early, especially for women. I have that exact same
Yeah.
experience. I remember when somebody said I had thunder thighs, and I was like, well, let me add 10 things to do to fix my thighs because some random boy said thunder thighs, and that carried with me. And so I'm hearing that from you too. And, it's nuanced because that person said to you, Tracy, and then the person who said it to me was to shame me. And it sounds like Kana, yours was just someone observing something and you took it as something to shame yourself, something that you felt. So it
I
can
felt
be
wrong.
external and it can be internal. And I also hear it showing up in the evolution of your business too. Your bliss, Kana calls her business blissness. And why can we please all do that? And now, if you go check out, and I hope you will, Midlife Butterfly and Kana's Instagram, you're going to see her. She's sexy all over the place and she's dancing and she's teaching women to be on their own pleasure and appreciate their own body. And so, this is the power of what happens when we notice our shame, when we name it, and then when we do things that we'll talk about later in the panel to unleash ourselves from it. That's gorgeous. Thank you, Kana. Okay, next up is I want to call you my partner in crime, the biggest spark, in the game, Casey Tayton. And I'm just adding CEO. She's CEO and host of the Inner Spark podcast and founder of Little Moments, Big Dreams Celebrations, which is an organization that brings smiles to kids in the hospital. And I hope that you'll, at some point, Casey, talk about how you see shame showing up for your kiddos too, because I'm sure it's there. But for now, can you speak into your own experience of shame? Maybe tell us a story and how it's shown up, what it's kept you from, and if it's shifted at all when you started to name it.
Thanks, Dana. So listening to the other beautiful ladies, I realized there's definitely a theme here of I had spinal meningitis when I was a baby, and I don't remember it. I was so young. However, my family continues to talk about it. And so I always felt the shame of I did something wrong or I was bad for having something that caused my family so much pain. And yeah, oh, sorry. It's big. And then as I got older, I was a competitive roller skater, and weight was a huge thing. We had to we wore the little dresses, and I was young when I started. I was like 5 when I started, and I went all the way into like high school or middle school, start skating all over the world. And we wore the little bitty dresses, and weight was a huge thing. And I remember one of my coaches saying, like, what is she eating? And my mom was like, I'm giving her a snack every day here. Like I would go straight from school to the skating rink to practice. We practiced 7 days a week. And it was just like, well, we're gonna have to change your snacks because you're getting a little bit bigger. Bigger as in like I'm growing and I'm hitting puberty. Like, how can you change that? And and so I think I've always been conscious of my weight. As I got older, I switched to, soccer playing. I did things. I always wanted to be daddy's little girl. I was, still am, grown adult. But I switched to sports that my brother was playing. And I wanted to, oh, wow. You caught me off guard, Dana. Thanks. I started playing soccer. I started playing golf. I was the runner, did all the things so I could connect with them. And also I think in school, I tried super hard. My brother was just naturally smart and I was not. And so I think there was shame around like, why am I not the smart one? Why am I always the one that seems to be causing like all the problems? And then as I got older as an adult, I fought a rare condition and my life stopped. And then I had scars. And so until a few years ago, I didn't talk about it. I was embarrassed to show my body. I was embarrassed to show my scars, and also to let my voice be heard and to let people know that it's okay to freaking have badass scars. And it doesn't matter what size we are, that we're all freaking amazing human beings and there's so much light in all of us.
That is gorgeous. That's so gorgeous, Casey. And I'm hearing some similarities with body image, and with what other people say about our bodies, which is so curious, which we then bring into our own internal monologue. I want to call it dialogue, but it's really not. It's me talking to me, you know? And then also I want to call that the compound effect. So shame when we're little, and then it compounds, and then it compounds, and then it compounds, and it looks like as an adult, and we'll get there. Like what I really appreciate how we're going backwards and like talking about childhood shame, and also want to invite us deeper in the panel to talk about current shame. It's this shame is doing what she does. She's like, yeah, talk about what it used to be like when you're little. That's like super easy and no shame in the game. But like just to protect your brain, we're going to go to current shame. Okay, everybody. And on the listener side, I bet maybe you're thinking about childhood shame too, which is of course where it all begins. And then the question now is, where are the blinders? Which blinders have shame put on me now that's in current day expression of my life? So thank you, Casey. And Casey, you didn't mention this. I'm inviting you to at some point speak into it about the work that you do now. But Casey is a huge light in the world. So with her podcast and her organization, she has used her walk through shame to create more life for the most vulnerable, lovely, gorgeous little people on the earth. So hopefully you get to speak to that, Casey, and definitely follow her journey in the links in the show notes. So next, we are transitioning to my favorite. I'm not gonna. I love everybody's podcast here. I promise. I love all of you, and I listen to you, and you're all incredible. But the one that I wake up on Thursday, and I'm like, same crime, different time is coming out. The founder and host of that is my good friend Jen Chambers, and Jen Chambers is also a writer, publisher, and the host of Beyond the Margins with Jen Chambers and Same Crime, Different Time, both podcasts. She's also a TEDx organizer, a graduate of the Iowa Women Summer Writing Program. I don't know why I threw women in there, just had to. It's not women. Let me read it again. Graduate of the Iowa Summer Writing Program, and she's dedicated to helping others share their stories. So, Jen, same question. Tell us about shame, what it's kept you from, and how you have shined light on it in your life.
Thanks, Dina. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. It's every time we all meet together, it's my favorite day. And this is even better. It's so interesting to talk about shame. I feel like shame is my origin story. You know, shame is my, I was introduced to shame, I guess, kind of at my very beginning, because I had a brain injury, and after my car accident that I got my brain injury in, relearning how to be like everyone else was my number one goal. And I always felt so ashamed because I was intrinsically not. There was no way, I didn't feel like I could bridge the gap to be like everyone else. And so every walk was, everything I did made me feel inadequate and not enough. Not because I think anyone else told me I was, but I took that on because I could see that I didn't match. And it was terrifying. It was so terrifying. So in a lot of ways, a lot of the things that I have done has been to stop that shame from happening. And working really, really hard all the time to make sure that nobody sees the man behind the mirror. You know, I think that it's served me well in a lot of ways, but I've kind of bent over backwards a lot to try and be what everyone else wants me to be, rather than figure out what I want for myself. So that's been my work of the last 10 years, probably, trying to figure out how to listen to what I want and my own needs and my own the places that I want to go. I really liked also that you guys were talking, I mean, I didn't like it, is the wrong word, but I think that we all have so much in common as women when we speak about shame in our bodies. because one of my earliest memories after I came back from my brain injury and all that, and it's funny because I hadn't thought about it for years, but hearing you guys talk about this completely, I was right back there. I was mostly recovered. I was out to dinner with my parents. I live in Eugene, Oregon, so the University of Oregon is there. And we were having dinner in this restaurant on campus, and I get up, my parents have left, and a U of O football player comes up behind me and like grabs my butt. And I'm 16 years old. And I didn't know what to do. This was many, many, many years ago, but I was just so ashamed of myself. Like, what did I do? I didn't invite that. I was just standing there waiting to go outside or something. I don't know. But that was my first introduction to that kind of shame about my body. And I think that so many women get so many unwanted comments, grabs, advances, all sorts of things. It's interesting how I've internalized that. And I just felt so incredibly ashamed of myself at that time. And that I didn't realize that it had stuck with me, but I've done a lot of things to cover myself up for that reason, metaphysically and physically, because I felt like it was wrong. So I think that's really interesting. And I've spoken to so many women who have experiences with not always men, but often, that have caused them to feel a lot of shame. And it's very sad, but it's interesting. And to me, it's really great to recognize that it's not about maybe what happened to me. It's about how I'm processing that shame.
You have just made the invitation for us to do what I think might be the most important thing, Jen, and it's to wake up. And I use a wand in my practice as a symbol for many things, but one is the awakening, the awareness of, hey, that thing that guy said to me or that woman said to me. I have an example that I've shared before about how I used to love math. I'd be obsessed with it. And I took all advanced math classes and I was on the accelerated track. And then when it came time to apply for AP, the female math teacher who was, she'd been teaching AP Calc forever, she looked at me and she's like, there's no way you would make it in this class. You're not good enough to be here. And so from that moment on, I did a couple of things. One is I got that hot feeling of shame. I'm not good enough. I'm disconnected from not just my peers, but also my identity of who I believed I was and what was true for me. And then carried that through into almost adulthood until I woke up and realized I went to this really fancy college and I said, well, I guess I'll have to take remedial math classes. And I just, so when part of the work is waking up and realizing. So when I realized that I had just taken that woman's opinion and made it my identity, I thought, well, maybe I could release that. And then the universe knows what she's doing. So I ended up teaching 5th and 6th grade math for a short time, and which was so fun because my kiddos would come in and say, oh, I'm not good at math. I was like, up until today. And today we're changing that agreement. And let it be as simple as that and repeating and repeating. So thank you, Jen, for the reminder that we get to start questioning what's real and what we agreed with and wondering without shame, like, oh, I carried that around for like 20 years. Like, that's interesting. And so today could be the day to let that go, to change the agreement and to decide. You said something else that was really beautiful, what I actually want and who I actually am. So this deep authenticity of the ask that your soul is making about that shows up in evidence of doing things that you love. Thank you so much. So our next question is, the floor is open, and it's about the anatomy of shame. And the question for each of you is, what systems do you think most fuel the feelings of shame for women specifically in society? So maybe family or friendships, religion, culture, politics, take this anywhere you go and you'd like to go. And then if you could make it personal. So yes, conceptual and theoretical. And also could you bring us into the heartbeat of a moment where you or someone that you love and serve experienced shame as a result of this? And so I'm going to go first just to warm us up. I was raised in a Southern Baptist religion and also sent to Catholic school. So it was very confusing. Very confusing. And one thing that I love most about my life and still do is I loved animals. I was raised on a farm. We obsessed with them. And one day we were driving to school and one of our dogs was on the road and she was gone. She was with the Lord. And I was so devastated. And I went to, I'm in second grade. So that makes you what, like 7. And I went to the priest and said, "Pumpkin's with Jesus in heaven now." And at that time, the Catholic Church had a different stance on what happens to the pets' souls than they do now. So thanks, Pope Francis, for shaking that up for us. But at that time, the priest informed me that, oh no, Pumpkin was not with the Lord in heaven. There was no soul for Pumpkin. And so she just didn't exist anymore. And I felt so much like I felt so ashamed because I trusted in this religion. I trusted in the Son of God. I trusted in all the things. And then I felt this hot wash of, that's not true. And I've been lied to. And not to mention the countless other things that the Catholic Church was like, and if you do this, you're going to hell. And if you do this, you definitely don't have any sex because then you're definitely going to hell. So before I even went to the 5th grade, I was sitting in mass and I was like, well, why even bother? Because I'm definitely going to hell anyway. I've done way too much to even consider being the good girl. And so it was really deflating on that. And I know I went to childhood, but I carried that all the way into my first and second year of recovery, where I got a new lease on what it means to be a woman of the spirit of the universe, and that religion and spirituality are not the same. So starting from childhood and then carrying it really angstily into current day reality and recovery. And with that, we'll go to Kana.
Yeah, so from my side, I think, shame is, for what I'm going to share, comes more from family and, in the case, religion, which is about sex. Not considering it a taboo and not talk about it. And then from there, I guess it comes the shame of women, of us having a menstrual period, and then shaming if we got a stain at one point, if we are like having a tantrum because we are in our PMS. And unfortunately, we haven't had that kind of culture. We don't have it, like how our hormones move around, how we can actually go through them. And then we feel shame because we are behaving differently, or because we feel like eating more junk food, or different mechanisms that our body has, because it's just going through these moon cycles every month. And one of the things that at least happened to me related to sex itself is the fact that, well, I guess I gotta give a bit of story before that, is the fact, like, my very, very first love, we were together for 4 years, and we never had sex. And we never had sex because of fear. Like, his brothers and sisters, all of them got married. From my side, my brother got pregnant. No, sorry, not married, pregnant. From my side also, my brother, my cousin, that I'm a bit older than her. So it was so much fear that we never had, we never made love. And that came as a consequence of what I picked up on that at some point that I just discovered like 5 years ago. It was the fact that I thought that I didn't deserve pleasure. And I used to relate pleasure only to sex. But we can have pleasures for many, many things. Like, I'm just having such a pleasure having this conversation with all of you, you know? So then that's the thing, like, starting to see pleasure from a different place, from a different perspective, not only related to sex. And it has just been another thing, like completely different. And it's been always something that I was like, yeah, pleasure. And I even have it in my in my desktop. Among all the wordings and affirmations that I have there, the word pleasure is there. And no coincidence that the universe at this time, I am actually taking a certification as a neuroepigenetic breathing coach. And this certification has been just blowing my mind, because the mentor, what she talks about as us as human beings, we are sex, love, and consciousness. But unfortunately, we have been fragmented, right? No, love is one thing, sex is another thing, and then consciousness is something else. It's like, hell no. I mean, we have everything in our body. So for me, trying now, like really understanding and embodying that part of saying, yes, we are sex and we are love. And when we think about it, it's like, of course, we come from those two elements from our parents. They have sex and love, otherwise we were not here, you know? But it's just crazy how much then we can have that shame of not talking about sex and pleasure and sensuality when it's part of ourselves. And that's what I'm like now, is like, bringing it on. And that's what I'm tuning in more with my body. And I can't wait to bring this to the world, for me to be able to share it, because it's so important for us to, again, talking, like, just here in this panel, all the shame that we carry in our bodies for a comment of someone. Like, how come is that possible that it can carry us through how many decades? So the more we can tune in with our bodies, that we can love ourselves and care for ourselves, then that shame starts to dim away. That's how I feel it.
Yeah. So love, sex, and consciousness. And if you're not watching the video, I want you to know that when Kana was talking about periods and menstruation and sex, all of the women's heads were nodding and nodding and nodding and nodding. And so I'm seeing a theme here of periods and sex and making love. And I'll just add orgasms and self-pleasure, and this disconnection from who we are as women and our own sexuality, which is inherent, it's core, and it's so important. And as I'm learning recently, might be the biggest blocker to creating and manifesting abundance, that putting the lid on the sacred sexuality of self. And so, yes. And then also, did anybody hear the song, Let's Talk About Sex, Baby? Okay, you did too. Yeah, yeah. Great. Awesome. Okay, pass to you, Tracy.
Yeah, so I was just thinking about this, and you asked kind of, where does shame come from? And I believe it's just, again, it's this sense of belonging. I think we all want to belong. And ever since I was a little girl, I felt like I never belonged. I was always different, no matter how much I wanted to just blend. Something always, if everyone was over there, I was thinking this. But the one thing I was going to share is, I have never been religious. My family's never been religious. My mom was raised Catholic, Episcopalian, but she was raised in the Catholic school system, and it just terrified her. She just felt the fear all the time about all the sin and the nuns, and she was afraid of them. And so when she had her children, she had us baptized, but she would read to us from the Bible, and she would just say, guys, be good every day and not just on Sunday. And that was literally my religion growing up. But everyone would always try to shame me for that, because other people were very religious and they would make me feel bad. And I feel like I've always been spiritual. But what I was going to share was, I've always been into things that I realized in my 20s other people judged. So I've always been into astrology. I don't know where it started, but my parents aren't into it. I'm sorry, I'm turning off my robot. It's making noise. And they would so anyway, I was into crystals, and now that I'm older, I was into crystals and tarot cards. And I remember I had a really good friend who I asked him what his astrology sign was, his zodiac sign. This guy I thought the world of. He was super intelligent, very smart, but he was also a minister. And he was like, I don't do that. And I was like, I don't understand. And he explained to me that I guess in the religious circles, astrology and all of that sometimes is not cool. I remember feeling so much shame in that moment. I played my whole life back, like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? And I put it away. I stopped, even though I'm not religious, I just stopped kind of doing it. And now that I'm older, I'm realizing I don't care what people think anymore. But when I was on TikTok about a year ago, TikTok has this amazing algorithm. Whatever you interact with, it's going to send you more of it. So I'm interacting with all this different stuff, and I started noticing at the bottom of it, everything was hashtag witch talk. And I was like, oh my God, like through my phone. And again, I was like, what is my deal? And I felt so much shame. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at stuff about herbs and natural medicine and the moon and tarot. And so I bought a book on witches because I thought, what is this? And I'm just going to say it. I'm going to out myself. I was 100% a witch, for sure, in a past life, without a doubt. They used to say that if you had black cats, you were a witch. I'm already done there. I love animals. I've always had black cats. Witches were these amazing people. They just knew about the different seasons and Mother Earth and how to work with the land and herbs, and they were healers. They were these beautiful, amazing women, but men decided we can't have this. And there was anyway, I won't go into all of it. So I wanted to out myself with that because I've always held back. Everything that I'm into from a spiritual standpoint, I have been made to feel like it is wrong. And so I kind of hide it. And now I'm out there. I put it out there. Human design is what I do. And some people, even with that, because astrology is a part of it. And all of these systems are out there. It's to let you know that you have the answers. We don't have to rely on a book or some other person. It's within us. And so I'll leave it there.
Also notice all of our heads nodding with you. I'm like, yeah, we're witches too. Yes, yes. And I was hoping you would mention human design because knowing ourselves and our energy design sets us free. And just a quick example of that is I had a really powerful session with Tracy, and she shared with me my human design. And I'm a projector, which means I'm a pretty big source of energy, but also it's a little bit, I have to use it wisely. And it just brought me so much personal peace to remember, yeah, that's who I am. No need to be ashamed of how bright the light gets when I walk into the room. Because before that session, I knew I had a bunch of light and I knew that I was here to project it, but I didn't feel like I was deserving or as confident as I did when I walked out of that. And it was an hour session and a document. And I said, let's go change the world because now we know who we are and there's zero space for shame. And so I cannot recommend that work with Tracy enough, human design. And what it comes down to that many of us have said is a deep remembering, because it's not like we didn't know, but it's a remembering of who we actually are, not reliant upon, I'm going to just call out the patriarchy, which all those systems are, and that's not necessarily, I'm not a man hater. I love men. I'm married to one. He's very hot. But what I am saying is that shame is ensconced in these structures that we participate in from the first breath. And that's racism and it's sexism and it's classism and it's all those things. And so because there's so much shame entrenched in those systems, the most powerful thing we can do, I have two. One is to know ourselves so that we can then know and love the woman and the person sitting across from us, no matter what. Remembering that we're all one and shame's main job is to separate us. Thank you, Tracy. Jen, you're
Dana,
up next.
can I just say one really quick thing, just for listeners? Normally, the thing that you are ashamed of or that you're holding yourself down on is your superpower. It is the thing that when you turn up the volume, more than likely that is your gift on the other side. All right, I'm done.
Thank you. Jen.
I think that one of the things I was thinking about, so I was reading your question. So what systems fuel most shame for women? There's so many things involved in culture that shame women, all different kinds of things. I think one of the interesting things that's a part of a couple different systems is the idea of being a parent, whether you are or not, how you do it. There's so many ways that people shame you about it. Interesting. I thought it was interesting too, because we have a good mix on this panel. Some of us are parents, some of us aren't. I had an experience once where I had just had one of my kids, I can't remember which one. And I was in a group of other women. And I went to the bathroom, and my kid was safely in their carrier, right? And it was that's right, it was my second son. There we go, now I got it. And I went to the bathroom, and I heard them talking about me in the bathroom. So I heard them saying something about they wished that I wasn't there, and they couldn't wait for me to leave. And it was interesting because these women were women who were perfect parents. You know, they always were the ones who always picked their kids up all the time and went to every PTA meeting and all of these things. And I felt so much less than, because I was new at parenting this little person. So I think it's really interesting. So to finish that story, I called my husband. I didn't drive at the time, and I got out of there because I wasn't going to be around those women. But I think it's interesting how women in particular can shame each other about parenting and lack of same, or it doesn't matter. I think it's terrible that we're taught that there's more value in one way or the other, and in how we do it. Everybody's just trying their best. I feel like parent or dog parent or cat parent, we're all just trying our best. And I always remember that, just because I think, first of all, I was struck by the fact that these other women were being so awful about something like that. But yeah.
That's a beautiful point. And the reason is not because those women are awful. It's because we're a part of a system where shame is in the water. And that's why we're here today. And so what I heard you say is, yes, it's an internal game. And also, can we not be assholes to each other, especially women to women? And just in deciding to be kind and loving, or even curious, deciding that if you knew the whole story, the only thing you would feel is connection, love, and compassion, and then moving on with your day, whether you agree or disagree, is so powerful. And then I just want to add quickly to that is being a mom and then watching the way that I'm interfacing with my own kids. So I interrupt that passing down. So when I received a shaming remark from my mom or from my teacher or whatever, and then it starts to come out of my mouth to my own daughters, I wake up and say, actually, you're an amazing person, and maybe you just made a bad choice. How can we fix it for next time? But sending my girls to school with a reminder that you are beautiful daughters of the infinite, and so is everyone else in your class. And what we're looking at right now is the types of choices that we're making. Do they align with who we actually are? Which, just in case you're confused, worthy, loved, deserving, enough. Repeat, worthy, loving, deserving, enough. The end. Nothing that we can do can jeopardize that. And so now the question is about the action. Casey, round us out.
I do not have children of my own, although I feel like I have 100 kids out there in the world that I get to celebrate all the time. And the thing that really comes in is there is so much shame they go through, and I can relate on my own level that the society puts on us about how we should look and how we should feel. These kids that have scars like me, like, they're the ones that inspired me to like show my scar off. How can I tell these kids they are superheroes in my eyes and show your scar off when I'm not doing it? So And a lot of these children are losing their hair. And so we have made fun hats that we get to do to bring into the hospital for these kids to make them feel normal. Like, it's okay to not have hair. It's okay to have badass scars. Like, society puts so much pressure on us as humans, and we're here to change that.
Yes, and that's the perfect segue, the perfect segue to this next question, which is, okay, great. Now we know we've got shame. We know she doesn't like us to talk about her. We know we're using shame against each other. We know that it's ensconced in the systems. And so what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? So the question for you is, and Casey, you just named one, what practices help you and that you recommend with the women that you serve to release shame? So you shift when it starts to come in. What are the practices that you use? And I'll bring the one that Brene Brown mentions, because this is the one that I use most in my life, is I'm awake when the feeling, it's the warmth, right? Someone says something or makes a nasty comment or whatever. And then I'll start to notice the warmth, which is my signal. And then I'll bring it back to, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And it's simple, right? I'm a daughter of the infinite. I'm a spirit of the universe. I'm loved. I'm worthy. I'm enough. I'm a deserving, the end. And then if it's a question of a decision that I made or a choice that I made that wasn't in alignment, I get in and I start talking to me, right? It's like the sexiest monologue. Like, hey, sis, you made a mistake. It's okay. Can we do better next time? And the other part of me is like, yeah, sure. Let's do better next time. Okay, that's seen. Let's keep moving. So my whole identity isn't on the line every time I do it to myself or receive it from someone else. But it comes back to a practice of remembering who the fuck I am, and then getting in the heart and soul of the conversation and being real nice to me, really kind, really loving, just like I was talking to my youngest daughter or any of my daughters. So that's the practice that I use for myself. It's the one that has set me free and that I most recommend. And let's go to you, Jen.
I have to say that this is incredible, because the practices for me relate to breath work for sure. Being able to breathe into the feelings. Are they real feelings? Is this accurate? Is this something that I need to work on? And then also, I like to, because what I do, I write. So I always like to write through it in my journal in the mornings or in the evenings. I like to write through it and then kind of clarify those feelings too. Like if this is real, what do I want to do about it? If this is not real, why, how can I not trigger myself about this? Can I not be around those people or around that, whatever it is that's bringing it up for me? So I think that that's valuable, because then you can either discard it or work with it. So for me, that's useful. And I try to make it not too long, because a lot of times when people say, oh, we have to journal, it's like a 40-minute session, but I tend to do that very quickly. It works for me.
Yeah, the somatic practice of breath work and then making it quick and easy. We don't have to get in bed with shame and like have a talk out. It can be a literally in the moment redirect. Thank you, Jen. And back to you, Tracy.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think one of the number one things to do is just to own it. To own it and put it out there. Dana, I remember, I've told you this before, but the first time I listened to your podcast, which is phenomenal, hearing you tell your story, the way you told it with so much honesty, vulnerability, laughter, the whole thing, it was so beautiful to witness. And I think everyone can learn from that, because it's something about keeping things inside. That's where the ugliness grows. That's how shame grows. It requires it to stay locked inside. And the thing is, it's going to come out. It may not come out verbally, but it's going to come out either through the body, or you holding back from something, or maybe you have a conversation with someone and it triggers something and people are like, whoa, where did that come from? It's coming from that shame that you've locked down inside. So I would say, also when you speak it into existence, it doesn't just help you, but somebody out there is going to hear your story and say, yes, oh my gosh, I just saw a social media post from a woman the other day. She lost her mother walked away from her at a very early age. So she felt so much shame. Her own mother didn't want her. And she was with one of her girlfriends, and they weren't even talking about this. And her friend just said, "Hey, my mom left when I was 3 years old." And the woman was like, "What?" And her whole world changed from that moment because she had found someone who had her story. So that's something else to think about. We keep these things locked inside. So I would say just own it. And really quickly from the book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, they had three things: open up the secret, speak it into existence, and write a new ending. Write a new ending. You have the power of the pen. You can change it from the moment that you talk it and write yourself a new ending.
Yes. Yes, yes. And the thing that came up for me is if it has a name, that means there are a lot of people that have the same experience. And so in the recovery community, we walk in and we're like riddled with shame because we've made all these decisions and contracted some STDs and maybe been to jail and all these things. And so when we get in these rooms, recovery is really powerful because we get in and tell the gnarly, gritty, itty truth about the experience. And you watch the heads in the room nod, just like everybody is nodding now. And the reminder that if it has a name, that means many of us have experienced it. And so I'm not sure why STDs came up, but like, hello, one in like everyone has one. Okay. So we can talk about it. It's okay. And that's just another example of something that so many people experience and that we can speak truth onto. So thank you for those three examples. I'm definitely going to put that book in the show notes too. And let's go to Casey.
That was powerful. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, yeah. Breath. I can't even get words out. Sorry. I can't. Okay, I'm gonna follow that back with I do breath work to calm my nervous system down. And I do affirmations. My grandmother was the queen. She passed away a year ago, and she was the queen, and I never realized it until after she passed away. The power of what she did in her life was wake up every morning, putting on her makeup, telling herself, I am beautiful. And she got ready every day. And I also think the other biggest thing is just speaking it. Every single one of us in here are freaking speaking it in some way or another. And it's touching everybody.
Yeah. Also the power of podcast, right? Because each of us have used our platforms and podcasts to speak truth into our own experience. And everybody's stories, especially when they get really personal and you start like letting out some of those secrets, it is the deepest, most powerful connector between me and the listener and you and your listeners. And I'll be on your podcast like, yes, me too. I love skinny dipping. It's so fun. So thank you for that. Thank you for your work in the world. Kana.
Yeah, from my side, I think it's because I've done a lot of inner work. I mean, we all have, but I mean, really, if we go to a deep practice that it takes longer, is more to, as you say, Dana, like get to know ourselves, like get to know ourselves deeply and accepting our light and accepting our shadow. Because more of the shame, it comes from the shadow. It's the hidden pieces that we don't want people to see, or flaws, whatever it is in there that is not accepted by society, culture, etc., etc. So once we know which our shadows are, people can come and tell you whatever. And you're like, yeah, so, and I love myself and it's part of me. I'm so proud of it. Fuck off. Like, seriously. So I think that's one of the things, like it gave us a superpower. The more we get to know, love, and accept ourselves, the less shame we're going to get. And now, at least for me, when there's someone approaching that I can feel like, bringing that kind of sense of shame, what I do is like, yeah, it's the perception of that person, whatever his life experience has been, it's how they perceive it, but I don't see it that way. And it's okay. That's it.
So the really deep grounding into who you are and what you agree with and what you're available for. And you can say, yes, ma'am, or fuck off. Either way works.
Yeah, because it's,
when you
it's
get
up
clear.
it's up to us to give them permission or not. But we are conscious and aware enough now to say, am I going to allow you? Yeah, no, I feel it in in my body. Oh, it's warm. Oh, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm not taking it. Thank you very much. I'm not taking it.
That is gorgeous. I want to lay out one more, and this came straight from your inspo, Jen, one more practice that I'm going to call all of us forward. Everybody here, everybody out there who's listening, is the practice of being a shame interceptor. And so I'll give you an example. When we already talked about my thighs, so let's talk about my ass for a second. So I have a juicy booty, like it's juicy. And I used to feel ashamed of it until one woman pulled me aside when I made a self-deprecating remark about my butt, and she said, "Don't you know that men love the juiciest booties?" And from, not that like my whole worthiness is dependent upon men, but it was when the moment that I stepped into my own sacred sexuality and started walking around the world like my ass was fine. And guess what happened? Everybody else started to agree and align, and I felt sexier and I felt more in my own body. And so I'm able to now, my second daughter, God bless her, she's the one with the juiciest boot at our house. And my oldest daughter is thin. And so she'll say something like, "Oh, Audrey's fat." And I'm like, "Oh no, she's got the juiciest boot in the house." Like it's something to love and cherish. And so my daughters and I twerk around the house, just like showing off what we've got and really loving what is. And we intercept that. So when someone else makes a remark that is intended for shame, whether it's consciously or from the systems, we intercept it in whatever way feels authentic to you. You might not be willing to tell the lady in the stall to fuck off, but I am. But you could do something a little bit more nuanced with the people with whom you have the most sacred influence. So starting in your mirror, and then starting in your bedroom, and then going into your community and going into the lives that you touch, and intercepting that shame in a way that feels really good. So to close this out, I've invited each of our panelists to share what we're going to call a power sentence to any woman listening right now who feels the sense of shame. And by the way, when we start speaking about our own shame, it's like everyone resonates. So you probably have already felt a little bit of the warmth today, right? Because when we talk about it, it's infectious. Okay. So I've invited each of our panelists to offer one sentence to any woman listening who feels like she's in shame now or stuck in a shame from the past. And she's like, what do I do? So the floor is open. One power sentence to anybody who's listening who feels stuck in shame. And Casey, you can lead us off.
I love you. I see you. I hear you. Your story matters. And I'm here to celebrate you all the way through it.
Jen.
You're not alone, and you deserve love, and you deserve to pursue whatever makes you feel good or that you're a part of something bigger. You deserve it.
Yes, not alone, and you deserve it. And pursue what makes you come alive. Thank you, Tracy.
I want a juicy booty. I would say love yourself, know yourself. Don't let anybody tell you who you are, and share your story. Share it. Bring it to the light.
Yes, share that story as a vehicle for healing and change and liberation and freedom. Ah, thank you, Tracy. Kana.
Yeah, all beautiful shares. If you are on your own, name it, say it out loud, put a super hot song and shake it off, because that shame is gonna is staying in your body. Freaking shake it out and dance it until you're tired.
And look sexy doing it. You know what I mean? Like using pleasure
Oh,
as the
hell
antidote.
yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Dance that booty
Yes.
out.
And my sentence for you is get in community. Get in community, because shame hates when the story arises. It hates words wrapped around it. It wants us to stay separated. So get yourself in community, whether it's a community mastermind, whether it's a spiritual community or recovery community or a sexy bitch community or a writer's community, whatever it is, because in community, we remember that we're all one, that we're connected, our hearts are connected, and that our deepest shame ultimately gets to be the source of our greatest power. Because let me tell you something straight from Tracy, when you tell the nitty gritty, gnarliest details of your story, there is a woman within your radius who's going to say, me too. And together you have set each other free. So I want to go back to the definition of shame as a reminder of who you actually are. When I say who the fuck you are, this is what you're going to remember. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. So the antidote is in the definition. We are worthy. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I really? What's my purpose? Here you go. Write it down. Number one, we are worthy of love. We are loved. Number two, we are worthy of belonging. You are belonging. And number three, we are worthy of connection. You are the connection to the infinite, the connection to the women in your lives, the connection to the woman in the mirror. You are love. You are belonging. You are connection. And the assignment now is to go out and tell the truth about your experience so you can bridge the gap for the next woman who feels like she's alone and drowning in her own shame. Can I get an amen on a weekday?
Amen.
Okay, so to close this out, I just want to say, as a reminder, shame is something that we have. It's not something that we are. And our story is something that we've experienced. It's not who we are. Remember that we're whole and we're worthy and we're powerful beyond even our wildest dreams. So I'm so grateful for you, Kana and Casey and Tracy and Jen. Thank you for your stories. Thank you for your liberating truth. Thank you for your work in the world. Thank you, gorgeous listener, for who you are and who you get to be now that you know the assignment. May we all move into the rest of our lives a little more, less shameful and a whole lot more free. Cheers to the shameless woman. Woo!
Woo! Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Love
Thank you,
y'all.
ladies.
Did you just feel the fire, the emotions, all the feelings in this conversation? This conversation on shame is truly, truly powerful. And I want to thank all my pod sisters and Dana for hosting it, and just all my pod sisters for being so vulnerable and open about our stories. And the truth is this is permission for you to realize that whatever shame you've been carrying, holding on to, it's not yours. So, as we close out 2025, let's be done with it, friends. Let's be done with it. I hope you loved this episode. I would love your feedback, so please reach out to me. And I will leave all my pod sisters' contact information in the show notes so you can contact each one of them as well. Saying goodbye to shame in 2025 and leaving it behind us. It is no longer ours to carry with us.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode. I hope today's story inspired you to embrace your own journey of growth and change. Remember, transformation isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave a review. If you found something that sparked you in this episode and may spark a friend, I encourage you to go share it with them. If you have your own story you would like to share, I would love to hear it, so please reach out to me. Until next time, friends, go have some fun and let those sparks fly.